We have no items from closed sessions to announce. And we are going directly to 6.1, public comment guidelines. The public comment opportunity is governed by the State of California Brown Act. By definition, this is an opportunity to hear concerns, perspectives, and differing vantage points. The board is not able under the Brown Act to engage in any level of conversation or discussion, but we look forward to this opportunity to gather community input. At this time, we will review comment to the Board of Trustees regarding any subject not appearing as an agenda item for this meeting, but over which the board has jurisdiction. The public may request that the board place an item related to the business of the district on a future board agenda. No action or discussion will occur at this time on such items. At this time, I will review general public comment. We have no cards. And so we go to item number 7, public employment. Consideration to enter into an employment agreement. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, let me, hi, thank you. If you'll, I think you have some language, but let's just talk about this employment agreement. Prior to considering this matter, as required by the governing code section of 54953, the board is providing an oral summary of the recommendation regarding the salary and fringe benefits under a proposed contract. This is for an academic administrator. District is entering into a 1-month employment agreement with Faye Smiley as interim assistant superintendent president academic affairs, beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending July 31st, 2020. Interim assistant superintendent will be placed at range 3, step F plus longevity, increments 1 and 2 on the assistant superintendent vice president salary schedule. The interim assistant superintendent president academic affairs shall be entitled to receive the same fringe benefits as the administrative confidential employee group. And you'll need a motion and a second on this.
And so the recommended action is approval of the contract. Can I have a motion?
Approval.
Second.
Okay. Moved by trustee Baldini, second by trustee Baker. Is there any discussion on the item, comments? There being none, I will call for a vote. Trustee Baker?
Aye.
Trustee Dodd?
Aye.
Trustee Goff?
Aye.
Trustee Iverson?
Aye.
Trustee Rios?
Aye.
Student trustee Leon?
Aye.
Trustee Baldini?
Aye.
And I on that as well. So we have unanimous votes on that. So, Faye, you're on for another month.
Thank you.
Thank you. So number 8, we go on to presentations. Martin Group, welcome to the meeting, and we're looking forward to what you have to say to us. And we do also have representatives from South, so we'll get to hear both entities talk about the progress of student housing.
Yes, thank you. I'll just kick it off and say the process has been wonderful. And we have engaged several professionals. Stephen Siri and the Martin Group has been giving the board updates, as well as in at least the last meeting, the Silent Group through Ann Volz. And our team, which I wanted to just acknowledge, the MVC team, myself and Bob Parker, Matt Christensen, Oscar DeHaro, Catherine Kittle, and Holly Dawson are all assembled to work on kind of the nuts and bolts of this as we shepherd it along. Tonight, I believe Anne is going to kick it off. I don't know if everybody has the same image of Anne as I do, but you might try you're kind of ghosted out. So you might try a background or something, Anne, that might make it.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that. Hello, everyone, and I'm sorry that I'm ghosted out. I did not, oh my goodness. I just saw it myself. I don't know how to turn it off. Okay, let's try this. How about that?
Perfect. You're perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for, that was a little weird. Okay, yes, so I will, hello everyone, and of course, my name is Ann Bowles, and I have met, I know several of you over the last couple of years, so we're really pleased to be back, and as Dr. Kraft shared, collaborating very closely with the college leadership team, with the Martin Group, with their design team, HPI Architecture, so it's really fulfilling to be back with all of you, and it's almost been a year. I remember May 9th was the presentation. We were talking about where are we going? Well, here's where we're going. So wanted to share with you the updates, and then I'll turn it over to Stephen and Jeff to share more updated plans since you saw since last January. So Catherine, if you can turn to the next slide, please. I just wanted to, and last year we spent a lot of time and with a lot of campus engagement that we talked about, but let's just, Catherine, if we could go to slide 3. And just as a brief reminder, what is our campus housing doing to serve your student population? What did we find out? What did we hear from your students, from your leadership, from your administration, from just being in your student engagement spaces and talking with students? Is everyone, there is a desire for an engaged and more diverse student population. That we always heard that this is very much, and it's such a wonderful campus that students get to enjoy from Monday through Friday afternoon. That campus integration with the community and affordable campus housing experience. Once we get past this short blip that we're in right now in our economy, there's tremendous job opportunity for your students while going to school. We heard if more students could live closer to campus, they would have an interest in taking even more credit hours. And what that does for your persistence rates, retention rates, that campus engagement, and of course, the academic outcomes that your students will achieve. And a huge honor to all the first responder education and whatnot, and also a huge honor. Just this is National Community College Awareness Month, and I just have to say I sat on a call yesterday for all the advocacy for all that the community colleges do for our state and for our nation. So just want to take a minute or just a second here to commend all of you for your dedication at all times. Next slide, please. So I am now on slide 4 called Planned Housing for Your Students. And wanted to show where our study as a very objective advisor showed that there is a demand and it aligns with the Martin Group's program. We did a 40, 50, 60% capture rate like we typically do. We're conservative. It's in our best interest to protect our clients' interests. And at 394 beds for your geared towards rent by the bed for a single student, the program has 394 beds allocated in that program, as you'll see coming forward in different unit options. So offering varying price points and also different student experience depending on where they are in terms of their career, their academic growth, etc. There's also too, as we noticed there, you have a student population that has families. They have children. They may be caring for a grandparent. And those students need to obviously live with their dependents, no matter who they are. And those are apartment-style housing that rents by the beds. We're calling it for purposes right now a flex building. but it's really geared towards your family. And again, family is defined not just by children, but by having a dependent. So 40 units falls well within the demand ranges, and it's actually a very conservative number for the amount of units that we're offering. So, and affordable, as you saw in the previous slide too, if students can live closer to campus, they may take, and they told us they would take more credit hours. So we have rents that, and we're still defining the rents. We're still in those early stages, and please understand we're figuring out construction costs and development expenses, you name it, site design. But right now we have rents, and that feels very confident, that start at $850 a bed per month, and that includes all utilities, all your Wi-Fi. It is one check. Also, to these students, there's income qualifications. If they're to go rent somewhere, they have to show, do I make 2.5 times the income? And there are reasons for that, obviously. We don't want any students to default or anywhere to market. But with the nice thing, too, about student housing, it provides that access, because the student just has to show ability to pay the rent and not that 2.5 times that huge buffer. A lot of students at this age don't have credit. So there's so many advantages to the structure that you're looking to do with your on-campus housing that allows just for a student-centered or college-centered population, with rent starting at $850 per bed per month. So I do want to turn it over, of course, to Stephen and Jeff so they can advance and show how the site plan, and working with all of us as recently even as yesterday, continues to support the objectives I just described and we all talked about last year, as well as this program. So Catherine, I think you could turn to the next slide.
Okay. Anne, are you ready to move on beyond this one?
Oh, Anne, I don't think we can hear you.
For one, okay, I'm sorry. So if we could stay on this slide for one minute at the most, and then Stephen, I promise I'll turn it to you, is housing for students. This is research. This is not research by Cyan or research by Ann Bowles, but that student engagement, those academic outcomes. If I'm a student and I want to go live off campus, I'm going to probably live with students that look just like me. Provides that diverse experience for on and off campus, and those student programmed activities are really important. So now, Stephen, Catherine, if you can advance the slide, and I will, if you don't mind, you or Jeff go over the plan, please.
Great. Thank you, Anne, and good evening, everyone. This is Stephen Siri from the Martin Group. We're the developer of the project. Over the past several months, our team has been collaborating with the college, Cyan, and the design and engineering team with this site plan you have in front of you. And for those that are following along by audio, we're on page 6 of the housing presentation. Just to quickly orient everybody, on the right-hand side of your page is the Napa Valley Highway, and on the bottom of the plan is Magnolia Drive, the entrance to campus. One of the benefits of this site plan evolution, as we've been working with all the design team members and the civil engineers, was our ability to achieve a balanced site, which is preferred from a design standpoint, and also from a cost standpoint, meaning we don't have any retaining walls, and there's no steps within the building. So that was a big challenge that our team's been wrestling with over the past few years, and we're happy to report that. One of the many goals of the design was to create a sense of community by promoting individual neighborhoods amongst the 3 buildings that you see here. On the right side is the apartment style housing building that's shaped like an L. In the middle is the residence hall, and combined between those 2 buildings comprises 394 housing beds for single students. On the left building is the Flex building, which provides for 40 family student units. And this residential density is consistent with the plan presented to the board this past January. Each of these buildings' main entrances open into a common entry plaza, which we really like because it creates a cityscape-like entrance to not only the housing project, but campus. The entry plaza will be a public space, which aligns with the strategic objectives to promote campus integration and accessibility. We had envisioned this area could be even utilized for food trucks or any sort of outdoor events. There's a lot of flexibility, and we're still talking through a lot of those options with the college and the rest of the design team. But we're really excited with the direction and collaboration that's brought this latest design. This plan also promotes student engagement and program activities, some of the other strategic objectives throughout all three buildings, specifically within the indoor and outdoor amenity spaces. All three buildings will incorporate social gathering spaces of some sort, and then also quiet study spaces. This design, as you can see, includes two separate courtyards, providing students with a variety of outdoor activities, such as barbecues, a central lawn game area that can be used for volleyball or cornhole, or a lot of different, we're calling it a flex lawn for now, and it could also be used for event spaces, as well as outdoor seating and quiet spaces. And then on the left side of the page is the surface parking lot for residents to park. And I guess with that, I'd like to maybe pass it off to Jeff from HPI Architects if there's any details or holes I may have missed there, or you'd like to expand on.
Good evening, everybody. No, you did a great job, Stephen, of describing the site. Maybe I could point out a few more features of this project here. Again, very similar to what we had presented back in January. Again, all three of these buildings are 4-story buildings. Again, the Flex building on the left side of the page there, those are primarily apartment style units. Similar to actually the apartment style housing, that's the L-shaped building to the right. The residence hall in the middle, that's for a different demographic of student population in there. And in that one, it's a little bit more of sort of like a traditional style unit. There's 2 unit styles in that. It's a studio type, which does not have a private restroom in it. In fact, they actually have common shared restrooms down the hall, but there are actually some suites in there as well, which do have private restrooms. Each one of these buildings do have their own common spaces and amenities for the residents of that building. Some of the common spaces that we're programming in here consist of game rooms, study rooms. There's multiple different scales of study rooms. There's some that could be for private study. There's some that are programmed for group study. And the majority of them actually occur in those blue highlighted areas that say the lobby or those common areas at the end of the building. So what we were really trying to do here was create all that student engagement at that core, or that main entry plaza, while still giving each building a sense of identity. So as you enter into that plaza, you would either enter into the Flex building, the residence hall, or that apartment style housing and make your way to your individual unit. We've also provided some additional common spaces on the corner of that apartment style housing right along Magnolia and Napa Vallejo Highway. And what we're trying to do there is create a nice architectural feature that sort of creates almost a gateway to the campus. So as you come in to the campus, this is now one of the first impressions that you get of the college. So we're trying to create a real special corner right there. So we envision it being, very transparent. You can see into that space. You can see students studying. Perhaps there's some glass in there so you can really see it glow at night. So that's some of the thoughts that we've had there. Again, I think what's really nice about this current layout, as it's evolved from what we had previously shown you back in January, is again how we've really integrated all three of those common lobby areas off that entry plaza. And now that entry plaza is in fact off of that main roundabout circle there. So it's really, as you're coming up from the rest of the campus, from the core of the campus, there you go, you can see it a little bit better as you slide down there. It's really that first primary view on axis with that road. So as you're driving out, you're going to look right into that main plaza, and you're going to see all these nice lobbies. And that's where we're going to have some really special architectural features there. I think if we go to the next slide there, Catherine, what we've done is we've created now we're on, oh, did we lose a slide? Looks like we lost a slide. Well, we did a nice little 3D view of it, but I don't see it in here on slide 7, so we might have lost one there. But it started to show it in context a little bit, and it started to show a little bit of the architectural character. What we're really envisioning is a little bit more of a contemporary design that's really in line with what you see on campus there. So some of your newer projects, such as the gymnasium or the library, we've looked at some of that architectural character, and we're trying to implement that and make sure that these buildings fit in really nicely with the rest of the campus. We're also looking at, especially from the color palette, we're still trying to borrow some of those same colors and make sure that everything ties together really nicely in there. So as we start to develop these plans and start to get the elevations refined, we'll be bringing you some more 3D views that really describe these buildings in detail. So I hope that helps. Is there anything I missed out there, Stephen?
No, that was a great summary.
Okay.
Board, do we have any questions?
I have a quick question. This is Jennifer. I just looking at the design here. It seems like I remember in a previous version that the intent was to have like a single entry point into all the facilities, and the reasoning for that, I think, was a security issue, also having to do with how much staffing you might need. And now we've got, it looks like 3 entry points. I just wanted to confirm that that was intentional and see if that's going to change anything in terms of management.
So I can take that one. This is Stephen.
Okay.
Relative to, there'll be really one main property management office, and that's in the lobby, shown lobby common area of the apartment style housing. All the buildings will be secured access. So there'll be fob entry. In the property management office, we also have a security desk where a security officer, at least during the evening hours, will have eyes on all the lobbies and that main entry plaza, in addition to having a screen with cameras located, or a computer screen showing all the camera feeds. And what's a little bit hard to probably see just with where the site plan is here currently is we do have courtyard fencing. So those courtyards are not opening, so they're secured, meaning you'll have to have a fob to get into them. We've been meeting through this design with the facilities and police team as well to coordinate some of these details, and we'll continue to do so as the plans progress.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Trustee Goff.
Okay. I have 2 questions. Number one is, in the residence hall, I'm assuming there are kitchens on every floor. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the second question, yeah. And my second question is just driving me crazy. In the top part of the flex building, to the right, there is a white rectangle. What is that?
So that right now is what we're programming as sort of the maintenance office and storage area. So for each of these buildings and units, that there will be extra furniture stored in there and things like that. And it's sort of a workshop as well. So we're using that building right now to sort of contain or enclose that courtyard a little bit and create some spatial qualities within there. But it actually opens up to the northern side of that site. But that's more of a maintenance
Okay.
piece right there. Single story.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Trustee Baldini, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Number one, what is the elevation, ground floor elevation from the apartment style housing to the parking lot? Am I pushing my shopping cart uphill or downhill, and what's the grade there, or what's the elevation change?
So we've been working with the civil engineer to grade the whole site so that it's a really gentle slope. In fact, it's relatively flat now as you go across the site. So they've been working really hard, as Stephen mentioned, to eliminate retaining walls and eliminate any off-haul and to really level the site out. So what you're seeing here is a very level, a level site here. And each building finish floor is actually, if not identical, very close to each other and very close to that parking lot level.
Great, thank you. Next question is, along Highway 221, what noise abatement or mitigation appliances are you using, or as far as the buildings from highway noise?
Yeah, so in terms of acoustics, we will onboard an acoustical engineer that will complete a variety of sound testing, which in turn we will use. They'll determine STC ratings for the windows, and so based on how those reports come out, we will, in addition to the wall types that the architect will put together, the windows will adhere to the acoustical STC ratings provided by the acoustical engineer.
Great. Then another question. It seems that earlier renditions we had access via a planned walkway to South Marketplace. I see that's disappeared. Is that off the table as well?
Yeah, we've taken a closer look at that plan option, and from just a cost and design standpoint, we think that it may be a challenge or additional burden as to implementing at this point in time.
All right, and I see the ring road exists for emergency vehicles. My concern, and you kept the bus station right where your pointer is, a social gathering. Now that's just south of some homeless population. What's to prevent that from becoming a social gathering for the neighborhood, if you will? So that's also security. That's what's envisioned that security will have access to, or our Napa College Police Force. Yeah, correct. And there's also, it's maybe a little hard to see, there is a site security fence surrounding the parking lot currently, and specifically that pass through that you're discussing. We are continuing to address the concerns relative to creating homeless encampment areas with the college police. So those concerns are being closely looked into. Thanks very much. I appreciate your answers.
Yes, thank you. Trustee Dodd or Trustee Rios?
I'll go.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thanks. I've got a few questions. I'll just list them off and then I'll be quiet. But a few questions for Jeff. I was just curious about not having any those bridges in between the different buildings. I know that was a cost-saving measure to try to avoid some extra elevators. So just curious on that. And then following up on Trustee Baldini's question, in terms of access, and maybe this is Stephen too, what do you envision would be the best access point to get to the Gasser shopping center? And then I think probably more Stephen, we have rents, or maybe this is Ann, rents starting at $850 a bed. Curious to know what is the average bed cost per bed for those single student housing beds, and then what would be the highest out of those. I think this is Ann. This is a question is based on the assumption that I believe Zion's helping out Santa Rosa. I was curious to know how many apartment units were being constructed as part of Santa Rosa JC's college's their student housing project. And then also just to get, in terms of Scion's original feasibility study, trying to correlate that and making sure that the room makeup that has been proposed, and I think we talked about it before we had re-engaged Scion, but getting something to really confirm that the room makeup count is as set forth right now is commensurate with what was shown in our feasibility study. And I'd imagine there's probably going to be some fluctuations. It can't be when you have different measuring opinions and whatnot, but there certainly was a list of, I recall at least a list of type of room types and products that were appealing to different types of students. So just want to make sure that that's commensurate. And then also in light of the student, what I believe, just to confirm that students' number one priority was having the least affordable housing as possible. I recall we talked about resolving some of the questions, that there were some ambiguous questions in the study regarding that. So wanted to kind of go back and I think I would prefer, and I would appreciate if the chair, we can talk about it more, but having something in writing, I think, just to kind of show it and walk us through it. I'm happy to kind of take to talk about that right now, but getting into kind of the weeds, I like the weeds,
Sure.
So I'd appreciate that. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll take your first question that asked about the bridges. You have a great memory. Yeah, in our previous design, we were showing some bridges that were connecting the buildings. In fact, in that design, we had 4 individual buildings, I believe, and that apartment-style housing building back in that previous design was broken up into 2 different buildings, and it was a little bit more orthogonal on the site plan. As the project has developed, there was further discussion on the demographics of each building and wanting to create individual neighborhoods for each one, and also individual common areas that they could share within their own building. So as we started continuing to design this, we actually began to separate those buildings into 3 individual neighborhoods. And when we did that, that actually eliminated the need for bridges. So the apartment style housing went from 2, or it could have been 3 buildings at the time, down to 1 larger building, and it was all connected together so that everybody within that building has internal access to their own common areas in there. And that's the same thing for the residence hall and the flex building. As they became separate, they all took on their own character, and they all became, they all started having their own common areas within that building. So there wasn't the need to connect them to a different building so that they can share another building's amenities. And that's why the bridges sort of went away. It also helped from a cost standpoint to improve the efficiency, reduce some of the exterior skin of the building, and again, just improve the overall efficiency of the design by connecting them in this manner.
Yeah, I like the open nature of it. I do.
Great.
Just a last question. In terms of accessing, if I don't think the bridge is necessarily feasible over the creek in terms of accessing. Is that the pathway? I guess where it shows site security fence or bottom. That's basically the access point if someone wanted to travel on foot over to the shopping center to the north. You suspect in terms of foot circulation?
That is one way. The other way, I mean, we've looked at doing some form of a sidewalk extension on the east side of the property here that would connect up towards Imola. The challenge is it gets really tight there between the highway and the agrarian area, and a little bit of a safety concern. So the current plan provides students access to utilize the existing crosswalk, walk across the street, and then utilize the existing sidewalk that would then as they traveled north, connect them up to that retail center area.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. Did you have all of your questions and concerns addressed, Jeff?
I'm waiting on four more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who would
Do you want, sure, I can, if you want, Stephen, I would,
Yeah,
you
sure.
had a couple of questions for me, Jeff. That's okay. Thank you. So I would need to get together with Stephen, but on average, and this is really high level, just me doing quick comp for that average rent, is as I mentioned too, the rents are still a little bit dynamic because we right now we're at that place where we have a really great design. It's going to stay very much to the integrity for which you've seen, but we just even now are in contractor interviews. So we're still working through the exact rent. And even at Santa Rosa or anywhere else we work, that becomes a bit dynamic. But as we all know, it has to tie back to the student preferences. And even in the next 2 weeks, we have 2 very engaged working sessions working through. So I just want to make sure that we know that these are not rents that will be up for, they're just right now really good benchmarks. So we make sure we have a feasible project.
How dynamic do you suspect they could be? Sorry to interrupt you, Ann. In terms of, I mean, like 10%, is that like a good max or 5%?
Yeah, I would say 10% max.
Okay.
Because we need to, obviously, we need to make sure they're attainable for the students. And there's a lot of balance sheet treatment. There's just a lot of factors that go in, but that's a great question. So they're not just rents that are tossed in there and we say, oh, we can just turn them and change them however we want. So 10% on the high side, but I think that's fair to at least say at this very early stage of schematic design. Stephen, correct me if I am wrong. I just did some quick math on that too, and from even work that we had done when we were analyzing the pro formas and even in preparation of the 2 working sessions we have going forward, is average rent per bed, and I'm taking out that flex unit because those rent per unit is around $1,150, and I haven't tied that back yet to unit counts, et cetera. But I'm pretty darn close, I'm sure, in saying that average rent is around that. But please, this is your area.
Yeah, no, I believe that's correct. I don't have them in front of me, but that sounds about right, Ann.
Okay, I just pulled them up real quick here.
And the highest highest cost per bed?
The highest cost per bed right now, and again, this is just a pro forma, is the highest one is most likely $1,600. We have a potential unit that we could do that would be much higher than that if we wanted to really offer a single student, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, pretty generously sized space. That would be much more than $1,600. So, so it could range. The highest right now would be $2,475, but the jump right there is $1,600 to $2,475 that we have in the pro forma right now. And we've been talking quite a bit about that. Now, just for a little, sometimes the highest units, in just based, I can't quote specific colleges, but sometimes the highest price units and the lowest price units sometimes tend to go the fastest, because there are students that obviously the majority need that absolutely affordable quality living experience. And then there are some students, or maybe it's mental health issues you just don't know, that really need that extra space, that extra room. So that's the range right now that's in the highest units that are in the pro forma.
Okay. Thank you.
You had asked about Santa Rosa.
Yes.
And then you had asked about the unit mix too. So to be responsive, hopefully, and ask me, of course, any questions you want. At Santa Rosa, they are doing a mix of traditional residence halls. So what you see right here. And actually, in a way, a program that looks somewhat quite similar to what you see here. And HPI actually is the architect on that project too. So Jeff, don't hesitate to join me here. And there's also in that the same complex, it's a mix of what's called semi-suites and a few apartment styles. So it's all in one building. It's kind of like an L that we're doing there. But it's a mix of traditional residence hall. So, of course, the bathrooms are, it's much nicer than when we think back, like, when a lot of us on this call went to school where, the cinder block walls and they're much, much more student engaged spaces, I promise you. And then the semi-suites offering a little bit more privacy and more of a communal space in between. And then, of course, apartments, we know what that is. So, Jeff, did I...
No, totally. I guess in the night, maybe I just a follow up. So what is the makeup of those three different product types in Santa Rosa, approximately?
Sure. Right. So within one building, they have, what is it? It's almost about half and half. Jeff, I have to keep up on the latest program, but it's about half traditional residence halls, maybe 40% semi-suites, and maybe about 10% apartment style. Jeff, did I get that pretty close?
Yeah, that's correct. And in fact, as you mentioned, it is a very similar program to what's being shown here, because there are residence halls that don't have their own private restrooms and kitchens. We are providing those features throughout the building for the students to engage in. So there's common kitchens on every floor, common restrooms on every floor. There's large living spaces and other social gathering events that take place throughout the building, game rooms, things like that, common laundry rooms. All those things are very similar in nature to what we're working on here at Napa.
So we have a 10% apartment style. That's out of the room count or product type that the colleges that we're looking at right now. Is that 10% as well, similar to Santa Rosa?
Everything we're sharing at this very moment in time is applicable to Santa Rosa. For here, it's slightly different. I'd have to pull up my numbers here. You have in the traditional residence hall, what is it, about 50, 100, it's about 130 beds for single students in that traditional / semi-suite configuration. And then if we start to look at and I'm doing fast math from a spreadsheet here right now, if we were to go to the apartment style building, you've got about 160, about 220 of apartment style. So you almost have, it sounds like when doing that out loud, a little bit more in the apartment style, and you could even tell from the configuration that you've got a little bit more on the apartment style housing here, which students can share bedrooms in the apartment style, and the pro forma accommodates that for even 128 beds would be that double occupancy in a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, very typical community student housing community style across the country. So here we definitely have more apartment style than Santa Rosa. So anyways, just want to make sure we're keeping those two straight.
And by contrast too, it might be, I don't know, Jeff and HPI at Orange Coast Community College in Southern California, they are all apartments, whereas Santa Rosa is all dorms. So this is really a hybrid approach between two differing approaches in Santa Rosa and Orange Coast.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's correct, Stephen.
And then Jeff, you asked if this, which is a great question, if the program mix aligns with our study. And it does. You actually, and I'd have to pull up our study again, and but there was interest in students for apartment style housing as well as the unit types that we ran pro formas last year on either apartment or on traditional residence hall. And what this program does here is offers a variety of unit mix and program type, which from a leasing perspective, that's actually very helpful. While we, Cyan, of course, too, is manager of 57,000 beds of student housing across the country. And just based upon that, too, is while it has to align with the market study precisely, and your underwriters will make sure it aligns very precisely. From a management perspective too, to have slightly a variety of room types, even like we have at Santa Rosa, is appealing because, as we know, we have different students with different needs, and we have different students with different access to finances, and you absolutely have a diverse student population here, a lot of first-generation students that most likely their parents would want them to live in more of a traditional residence hall style. I want to point out one little caveat here, too, that we should note, and it goes back a little bit to the 3 lobby spaces, is there's also, too, please bear in mind, this is student housing, and therefore there will be resident advisors living in the residence hall. So the apartment style and the residence hall both really provide for that. It could be a lot of first-year, second-year students, and that's a typical cohort that would be attracted. Your international students as well, as Oscar has spoken with us about quite a bit last year. But no matter between the apartment style and the residence hall, you still have that balance of the appropriate level of resident advisors and, of course, on-site community staff.
And would you, I mean, it would be curious to get my colleagues' input on that, whether they think it would be appropriate or whether or not they would like to see it, but having some sort of going over that study just again, it just makes, I'll just be totally honest.
Sure.
It makes me a little nervous. I want to make sure it's never, I think as you said, it's, I guess it's never going to be perfect, I guess. And you want it to be committed, but I'd like to just make sure, and that's, would like to make sure, I guess, that the feasibility study is, or what's being proposed in terms of product type is commensurate with what's being, with what we have in the feasibility study. So I'll shut up now, but thank you all.
So Jeff,
Absolutely.
Jeff Dodd, sorry. Do you want that put in a future agenda item, or?
Oh, can I, excuse me,
Yes,
Mr.
go
Chair,
ahead.
could I jump in on that? I would, I kind of want to follow up on Jeff there in his last request, and then I do have another comment. But I was thinking that maybe it would be possible to create kind of a chart that shows what the student survey revealed as to the students' desired, mix and type of unit. And what Zion had recommended from that in kind of a simpler chart that we can follow more easily instead of having to go back to that whole first report. As Anne just mentioned, she couldn't remember the exact details and would have to go back to the report. But that maybe we can have a chart created that shows what the students' survey revealed about the type of unit that they're looking for, the types of rents that they revealed they would pay, what Zion recommended from that. And as we go forward, adding to that, how that's changing so we could easily view those changes and track them, and the public could see it more easily and it'd be more accessible also to them. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good. That's a great idea.
I like that too.
And so if that makes sense, my other comment is actually to the design and the access that Jeff Dodd also brought up about the connection to the shopping center. I think we all thought that was one of the great things about the housing and having it close to the shopping center, that students would easily be able to access all the things that they need, from the housing. And it looks like we don't have any direct access. And I think it was Jeff who was explaining about how right now the thought is that they're going to cross the highway, walk, north, cross another, they're going to have to cross 3 or 4 times, anywhere from 2 to 6 lanes of traffic, instead of going up, right along the housing on the east side of the roadway. And I can tell you students aren't going to do that. They're going to take the easiest path, and whether it's they've got 3 feet along the east side of the highway, that's the way they're going to go. They're going to create a path through there. And I'm thinking that we should do something to make it more accessible and safer, because I can guarantee half the students are not going to go across the highway 3 times to access that shopping center. And you see this all the time. And, you know, walkways are designed often in kind of rectangular, intersections and things. And you notice the pathways that people create to cut off those corners to get to where they're going more directly.
Okay. You're suggesting that they come back with a plan?
No, I'm suggesting that we should explore this a little more, because I don't think that that's very convenient. And I think that was one thing we all thought early on that was great about this location for the housing also.
So I would just like to add, in relative to the explorations around the pedestrian bridge that would go across the agrarian area, we did take a good look at that, and in addition to what is pretty significant cost, which at the end of the day, more cost, requires higher rents. There are some CEQA related impacts to take into account as well, just in terms of putting a bridge there. So there were some inhibitors, at least, that made that difficult. We could certainly explore that further if that is really a direction, but there are cost and schedule impacts associated with that. And then relative to the pedestrian connection, if we wanted to look elsewhere, again, we can. There's some physical constraints with this site relative to the highway and the agrarian area. We can take another look at maybe something that we can do along the highway here, Raphael.
Yeah, on the east side, possibly.
Yeah, on the east side, and we might have to do something with so we can balance the environmental aspects. But
if I could,
go ahead.
Excuse me, Stephen. Well, I would really, if we're in the design process right now and we're spending the money right now, I really feel that we should take the time to explore and just get an estimate and go through the design process just to see what it looks like. If we don't have the money right now, or it's going to make, and it has too drastic of an impact on what ultimately will be student rents, then we don't need to proceed, but it can be some sort of alternate that we can proceed if the costs are right, or perhaps it'll give us the board to get together and find a way to, raise the money privately for the students, because I think it is that significant amenity, the opportunity. I think, Raphael, you're absolutely right. You've got across the street, at least 4 times.
Right.
So I think it's just where, I think from the design phase, in terms of environmental impact, that's something that's just going to be studied in the CEQA document. You need to get other federal permits from that, because you have a potential impacts on the riparian area. But it's a permit process that you need to go through. And it doesn't inhibit the build out of that bridge doesn't need to be at the same time as student housing.
Okay, so we could be exploring it as a future development, maybe not necessarily in tandem at the same time, because I do believe there would be some schedule impacts associated with that, just the permitting, et cetera.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. A 1602 permit.
Yeah, got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, happy that we hear you, and let us circle back on that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Baker, did you have a comment or a question?
I actually have both. I'm going to step a little bit out of character because I'm usually kind of Pollyanna, and of late I've turned into crankier. And I'm just wondering, as much as I hope that we'll all be looking back on 2020 as a blip, I don't really have a lot of confidence in that or any outlook on the future right now. And so I'm just wondering, I love what we're trying to create, and I love the design of what we have right now. and I think we've done excellent work with the research that we did pre-COVID-19. My concern is, is there any way that I don't even know what this would look like, but is there any way that we could adjust the feasibility study or look at it again, make revisions, look at it with a different eye, and just considering what's going to be happening with unemployment and with, changes to education and distance education and things that might be coming out of this whole process. I hate to just throw a wrench in the whole thing this far into it, but I mean, technically it wasn't me. It was a bat that did this. So I'm just, I'm just wondering what could we do to try to at least be cognizant of the potential effect from the economy going down the toilet right now for all of us. And then also just, what potential projections do we have for possible changes in timeline or budget that would be related to COVID-19 as well?
Can I comment on that?
Please do.
So I was, Holly and I participated in the same advocacy day, I think, Anne, that you were on probably the call from the chancellor. And we were once again reminded in these times of economic downturn and challenge, more and more people turn to community colleges. So I believe that even though economically we're all looking at this as a downturn and possibly downturn money for the college, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that we will have more students in the next year, that students will come to community colleges and take classes and take advantage of what we're offering. I would really hate to see us slow this process down, because I think we're going to need it more than ever in the next year, 2 years, 3 years than we actually thought. So I think it's imperative that we move forward with this and continue on with our plan of getting this open, because I think we're not going to see a lack of students needing it. I think we're going to see more students needing it than we thought.
Well, that's great. It's always good to hear something positive coming out of all this thing. And I have a question to both the NVC Housing Committee and to Zion and to the Martin Group. And I don't know if you can, well, anyway, on the walkway, the bridge, since it's crossing, what is it, a county or a state highway, could we get funds from them? Could we form a partnership to build that puppy or no? Whomever. No, I get not.
I think we'd have to look into that further. I think next steps we'll look at the design, get some firm costs from it, and then we can also pursue I guess various financing options that could be presented.
Hey, maybe we can apply to the Gassler Foundation. Why not? It's education. Yeah. Any more comments on the subject?
I just like to say, Raphael, I'm really glad that you brought that up, you and Jeff, about crossing the street over and over. There's a rule of law that you follow the cows because they take the shortest route and people tend to follow the cow path. That was a concern of mine. And I think if nothing else, if cost is an issue, I think we need to have a plan to put in safety measures, because we know, especially young people, they are going to take the shortest route, even if they're not supposed to, even if there's no path. And so I think we really need to be prepared to say, okay, if we don't have a direct path, a safe path, we need to somehow stop them from being stupid, because we're going to get kids who are just going to go. And we know that, right? We've done it ourselves, I'm sure, all of us. So I think it is up to us, knowing the risk and knowing this ahead of time. We need to accept that risk and be able to say we did everything we could to prevent a young person from taking that risk.
That's a good idea.
To build that safe path right now, we need to incorporate something that will prevent, to the best of our ability, from somebody getting hurt taking the shortest path. So I'd love for Martin to consider that when they're looking at this issue.
So it sounds like it's time to go to the drawing board and get a budget on that crossing bridge. But
or something.
Yeah. And Elizabeth, to your point too, and these again are very early schematic plans. That's already been a discussion topic in our last design meeting, just as we think through the eastern side of the project here, whether, we need to add more landscaping or fencing or anything to prevent people from, walking down to the highway from that area.
Right.
But we agree with your concern, and we will certainly look into this further with the staff and design team.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are going to move on, and wonderful questions, wonderful discussion. We got a lot done. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Mr. Siri, and thank you, the other Jeff. And so we're on to 8.2, State of the College. Our Superintendent President, Dr. Kraft, is going to present the 2019 State of the College report.
Yes, thank you. This format is an interesting one to present this, and I would say that every year at this time, the annual report really tries to illustrate or highlight, if you will, NBC's impact on the region and the county. And I think we all agree kind of what we do here matters. And so we're trying to recognize through this kind of community-oriented publication that our accomplishments. And it also celebrates in a way, and that's probably the right word, the support of our faculty and staff, students, alumni, community partners, what some universities or colleges call friends of the college, which are, orthogonally connected to the college in many ways. They know about the college, they like the college, they talk about it. So, and this also presents a valuable tool for trustees to review and talk about. I would say that, it's very odd to Jennifer's comment. It really is a look in the rear view. So, I mean, this is a year back. So we're really talking about, even though we call it 19, it's really 18-19. So it reviews in many ways, kind of an accounting approach, so you're always just kind of reporting on what was. There are some little snapshots that we can talk about, but it's published each year. It comes out through the Public Information Office. Thanks go out to Holly Dawson. Also, I think in terms of her development and kind of creation of the process, we work closely out of the president's office. Scott Allen and OIA helps on this, along with all kinds of contributors kind of across the institution. So I just want to acknowledge that it is a kind of a family affair. Generally speaking, I've talked about this before, the annual report is the college's tool to celebrate and talk about the highlights of the institution. Often you can acknowledge the challenges in here. It was a very good year for us in 18-19, and we really took many strides in the community. So we take a little bit of a look here. I would say that this report takes on a slightly different look from the previous. It focuses on the college kind of as a successful center, if you will, for the community. Our community hub vision, if you will. And then the stories of success and celebration kind of roll through it. It's not meant as a critique of the college. It's used more for letting people know the good work we're doing. There's plenty of options and reports and other kind of fact book pieces that also reflect on the college. I would say then, this particular annual report is picture heavy, and also with, strong copy. I think it focuses really, it kind of walks us through community events, arts, academic excellence, teaching. I'm thinking it through athletics, physical health, snapshot, workforce development as it kind of works its way through, focus through kind of multiple stories of students and innovation. And it ends up really with a focus on our community education programs and events, kind of highlighted, the cooking school, writers conference, educational pathways, which is that reach out in dual enrollment, and then ends up with kind of a nod to our philanthropic partners, with District Auxiliary Services and then the Napa Valley College Foundation. And with that, I have no intention of kind of walking you through each page and reading it, but we can take a quick stroll through it. What I would say is I'm quite proud of it. I think the college has done a good job. We have just one or two small tweaks to do in terms of getting ready to publish it on PDF. And we're still debating if we go to hard copy. The hard copy will be a very limited run, and they have their usage. But right now, I'm feeling very, very happy with it. So why don't you go to the next page here, which I think you'll all enjoy. This is the Board of Trustees page, which kind of highlights. It's important. What's very interesting when you survey, and I'll say this qualitatively, right? I don't have data to back this up, but I think very few people really understand what the trustees do. They recognize it's a position, but this helps you own, if you will, the vision and mission of the college, your strength in terms of policy setting. So there it is. Let's go to the next page and we'll just kind of walk our way through quickly. Viva Mariachi was just a smashing success. Hats off to Oscar and that team. It was a thought process that we really wanted to become have a breakthrough event for the college that really pierced this idea that Napa Valley College was not a hub for community culture and arts and teaching and learning, and we punched right through it. So having 1,000 people here was a very important piece. I think there's another one on this, Catherine. Thank you. It was in so many ways a celebration of our local culture, but it also got to the heart of teaching and learning, which I really loved. So the student learning and appreciation in this process, and that's that picture at the bottom there, in terms of local students coming in and learning from professionals, is a great way. We've talked briefly about the pathway from mariachi and music and enrollment to the Latino market, finding a very successful pathway into college. The next one is our graduation. I think it's really important. I love that the team chose this image really to celebrate who I consider as a rock star, Allison Haley, as a strong woman with a really important backstory of how and what she went through, with Esperanza Padilla, who was our valedictorian last year. So it's a very strong story. I'm very sad that we're not going to be able to do a commencement this year as we have, but we're still working on our approach. And there will be some celebrations. They're probably likely to be postponed, but we're almost there. Next page, please. Academic report card really just takes a look. Many people are curious about who goes here, and it kind of goes to also our process in over the years. This will look, as I think Beth talked about, when we review back this year, it's probably going to be very similar. When we go into 2021 and we start to look at our profiles, and if that influx due to economic downturn really happens, these age profiles are going to be very interesting to look at. So this gives us kind of a good piece. We are still female, male. This keeps the female students to male students has been hovering around that. It's not atypical in the system. There are more women in college than men. Degrees and certificates, you can just see the slant there, more. And this goes to the great job that the CCLC, the Community College League, is doing, the League for Innovation, the ACE, and all those other folks in saying, you know what, you're going to be more successful and earn more money if you complete something at the community college level, which is a degree or cert. You have it to fall back on. And the next page, please. Sports. Don't think right now, but we had a very active sports program last year. We did a lot of rebuilding last year, but as you'll read in here, the men's soccer team won the Bay Valley Conference the second year in a row. And we've done some very good work there. We're rebuilding our teams. We're a small rural college, so it's really hard for us to lay on new teams, but we're still exploring some possibilities, and I'm very happy with what we're doing. Next page, please. Fiscal snapshot. This is really about the kind of underlying values and assumptions and what we're doing. And also it talks about some very specific activities here in terms of the strategic plan and kind of matchups. And down below, and Bob's gonna obviously, talk tonight about other things moving forward, but this gives you a snapshot in terms of our expenses and our total revenues. What we look for there is that bottom number. We like to come in with a balanced budget. In lean years, or many of the colleges, I think, are going to have difficulty bringing in balanced budgets this and next year. I anticipate that we will not, and we're still strongly focused on expenses and revenues. And the next page, please. McPherson Teaching, what a rock star. Paul Gospodarczyk, took me a long time to learn how to say that, but was named one of the 40 under 40 in the wine industry. And he was celebrated as one of our brilliant profs, along with many others in the past, including, I think, Faye. You were a recipient of this. You were not a recipient of this. Okay, good call, Ron. The other recipient last year was Kelly McCann and Professor Dance, and these are recognized by their peers, and is a really important cultural backbone for this college. And faculty look to these leaders and the process in a great way. I'm very proud that we're doing it, and I believe this. I don't know what year it's in, but years, and maybe somebody does, but decades. Next one, please. Workforce development changes. Workforce, it seems like, the old shop classes that many people took back in the day, and then it iterates back out. And we went through ROP, Regional Occupations Programs in California. And then we find that welding and machine tool and small business and youth entrepreneurship are still in the pocket. People are really pursuing those things. This highlights just a couple of those: the annual youth entrepreneurship program and the Small Development Business Center, which talks about their outreach. And we'll just keep going. I'm just walking you through quick. I don't mean to land too much. DDGT, very interesting backstory. It's a difficult mouthful, but I think that the board has seen and visited this lab. They're doing amazing things over there. And you have probably read some of the DDGT kind of graphics, 3D printer stories on things that people are doing under this COVID umbrella. This is probably going to be one of the emerging career and technical education programs at the college. We're very excited about it. It was rocky a few years ago when people were more focused on the construction trades. But this is an elegant, STEM-oriented career and technical field that allows a non-math major and somebody with a strong creative flair to succeed. There's so many career paths in DDGT. So I'm very excited about it. Even English majors can do well in there, Christy. The possibility, performing arts, amazing. We have a great performing arts. This celebrates a little bit of what we did in October, and we did this. What did we do? We did Journeys, and we also, next one down, we also did a big and small. I'm trying to remember the big, Treasure Island was the big one that we did last year, and we did the Mary Poppins. So it's very good. As a hub, again, very strong. It's working very well for us. Upper Valley was the focus for community education. We're spreading that out a little bit. The cooking school continues. It's in its iteration now, when we're kind of working on its new iteration. And the Writers' Conference is an amazingly powerful event that I didn't recognize until I attended it. And then I saw the structure and strength of the people who come to speak at that, the unbelievable support across the nation, and the reputation of the Writers' Conference. We're hoping that it happens in late July. We're still hoping to resuscitate it this year, but last year it was an amazing event. Food and Wine at MVC is kind of the last piece. You can go on down to the educational pathways. This celebrates kind of a dual enrollment, and as you know, it's a strong focus. It's a great start for those junior seniors, or even ready sophomores. The Vision for Success from the Chancellor's Office supports that. AB 705 brought us into a new kind of era with trying to figure out how to do that. And faculty have kind of risen to the occasion, and support staff as well. And then finally, community partnerships. We had several. Festival Napa Valley helped put us on the map as a cultural center for the arts. They're a highly collaborative 501c3 that is really there to support music education in the Valley. So it was a great combination for us. And philanthropy, finally, there's a nod to the district auxiliary, our own DAS, and then the Napa College Foundation. That, in a nutshell, is what I consider to be a really good umbrella. And you're going to be able to, get these on demand, or print on demand, or send them to people. And I think it's a powerful tool that you should be quite proud of. So that is my notes on the annual.
Thank you. That looks beautiful.
Yes, I think Holly and team did a great job.
Yeah. It's awesome. Okay, so we are on to a 9.1, and that's reports. Is Dr. Tejada in to give us a report?
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm hoping everybody is staying healthy and well. The faculty of Napa Valley College have demonstrated their commitment to student success by their spending countless hours of course preparation outside of our job descriptions to ensure a seamless transition from face-to-face instruction to the online environment. Faculty continue to work with classified professionals and administration to meet the needs of students. The Academic Senate continues its important committee work and its business meetings. In addition to the increase in workload that online classes present, faculty continue to hold office hours, meet in committees, and continue to keep the business of the Napa Valley College Senate and shared governance moving forward. We continue to approve curriculum, initially approve revised board policies and administrative procedures, along with creating new distance ed training structures, curricula, and processes. We've established protocols for faculty evaluation during COVID-19 to address our unique circumstances. And we have approved the guided pathway scale of adoption, as well as the general ed learning outcomes. So we continue to move forward and we continue to serve our students. Thank you very much. That concludes the Academic Senate report.
Thank you, Eileen. Rosada is probably.
I'm sorry, I muted myself.
I figured, yeah. There you are.
No, I'm back. Thank you. That was a wonderful report. On to 9.2, Administrative Confidential Senate report is Mr. Harris with us.
I am. Good evening,
thank you.
everyone. Well, it's been a very interesting month since last we met. Since our last meeting, the college has formally transformed academic offerings to online instruction, and the faculty have worked with incredible success to continue high quality instruction for our students. We all acknowledge that there are many obstacles remain as we navigate these uncharted waters, but we're all in the same rowboat, pulling away at the oars to try to move forward and support our students. The Administrative Senate constituency has been working hard and diligently to maintain business and academic operations to support our students, faculty, and staff colleagues. Last week, in fact, 1 week ago, the Administrative Senate has opened nominations for the Administrative Confidential Employee of the Year. This nomination are for administrative confidential staff members below the level of the cabinet, level of vice president, and is selected by a committee of administrative and confidential staff members, and is awarded to the administrator who is well-rounded and demonstrated ability to respectively interact with all people, demonstrates organizational skills, exhibits behavior that positively reflects the college community, and shows leadership and problem-solving skills. We will be at the next board meeting in May, approximately 1 month from now. We will be presenting the selection for that position or that award, and the nominations and voting will close on May 1st. The Administrative Confidential's constituency group continues to stand by and work in support of the students, faculty, staff, and campus community. We're all working hard to maintain the very positive atmosphere that we have at Napa Valley College, and we look forward to working with everyone to emerge from this an even stronger college. Please, everybody, continue to stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. 9.3, Associated Students of Napa Valley College report. Is Christopher with us? Pablo, by any chance, did he give you something in writing?
No, I didn't receive any report from Christopher.
Okay, thank you very much. So we go on to 9.4, Classified Association report. Ms. Mall?
Valerie was here and she had to leave for another meeting.
Okay.
Here is her report has been posted though. I'm just showing it to you here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for doing that. 9.5, a classified Senate report. Marty Shoemaker, is he with us?
I don't believe Mr. Shoemaker is here.
Thank you. 9.5, Faculty Association report. Christy, is she with us?
I am here.
Hi, good to see you.
Hey, nice to see you too, and good evening, everyone. Since we last spoke, which seems like forever ago, we elected our officers, so I will be here for another 2 years. I was reelected as president of the Faculty Association. Sean McCann was reelected as vice president. We have Terry Wagner in accounting as our treasurer, John Kinchlow in English as secretary. Carlene Corey was reelected as part-time representative. We have resumed negotiations, and so they are ongoing. It's especially been a challenge because, of course, our faculty are being asked to do new things, and having to prep classes that they have already prepped. Only they prep them to be face-to-face with their students. Now they're prepping them over again so that they can do the content online. Workload has increased. The amount of training that and the learning curve, very steep. We're working on ways to fairly compensate our faculty for all of the extra work that everybody is putting in. I am confident and optimistic that we will still be able to settle on a contract by the end of the year. Negotiations are continuing, and we are trying to do the best with what we have.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I will just reiterate, and I think I speak for the board. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all that you've done, and thank you for those countless hours that you've put into to make this distance education work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for 2 more years.
Yay!
Yay!
9.7, President and Cabinet reports.
Yeah, it is me again. We really wanted to do, let me check real fast here. We are doing COVID now, correct? Catherine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Update on COVID-19.
Thank you. In my flying papers here, I'm trying to stay abreast of everything. I'm going to go, I asked a couple things. I asked staff to review from their areas, and they forwarded it over to me, and there's a copy posted on this. But I would talk about a little bit of where we are, and we talked about it last time. Not talking about COVID tonight would be odd, I think, in terms of this board meeting. We all know what we all know. So traveling down that territory is not necessary. I do think that there's a couple different pieces here for us, though, that it's because the viral pandemic versus other emergencies is its long-lasting event horizon. It's like a never-ending hurricane that kind of continues and then swirls around. So it is an odd emergency, if you will. Because of its far-reaching pieces, and especially the social distancing, and then we got into the infection rates and all of that. It has hurt higher education, and I'm starting this way on purpose, nationally, brutally. And many colleges and universities will not survive this. They will go under forever. Those are the ones that probably would have failed in the years ahead. Those are the small private liberal arts colleges. Some of the historic Black colleges are in real trouble, which is just a catastrophe. There's some under HACU. There's some Hispanic colleges that focus. So the strength of the system came out in the community colleges across the nation. Of the 1,100 of us, there's about 1,400, but several hundred are private. So of the public community colleges, we are absolutely the most facile and flexible. As Eileen and Christy talked about, faculty and staff, administrators, we were able to shift literally. This was like a drag race, from start to you got a quarter mile and you better be teaching. And we did it in a very brilliant way. So that hats off really to the professional managers and leaders at all levels. We have deep staff expertise. We are set up better than most institutions to address just this kind of issue. That's why we're able to move so fast. And to their credit, we have a highly educated and talented group of people here. We're a college. So many people at the college level have a great history of, not only work outside the institution, but professional endeavors as well. So we're lucky. And we're also lucky on our funding piece and our stability. So with all that said, there are a couple things I'd like you to look at, generally speaking. Then if you can just punch that up, Catherine, and you may already be. That's right. I'm sorry. Go back up, if you will. On that first page, if you haven't, this is our homepage. There's a COVID-19 button on homepage, which leads to a huge group of wonderful things that we are doing. And I think that would be important for you to look at. So now I'll just walk through. I think it's more about care and feeding. And I don't mean that pejoratively, but students really needed high touch. My son came by today to show me a new camper shell that he got for his truck. Very, very frustrating not to be able to hug him and say hello and all that good stuff, right? So, you know, we did anyway. And then I immediately washed my hands. And but the bottom line is that people feel isolated and even more isolated. The fact you come to college, the fact that you go to college is not simply for the education that you receive, but for the experience of the whole cultural experience of learning from the academy and being on campus. So that's not there. So we've done a whole bunch of things. You can see here we did student survey. We reached out to a lot of students. We did a phone banking piece, touching, I think we dialed, let me look at it, 68, called 5,700 students and asked them how they were doing. That is phenomenal work. And people just appreciated the phone call. I don't know if your banks have called you personally to ask how you're doing, or any of your vendors, but that's how it would feel. Overwhelming responses. We have early on last year started to put in some technological pieces to talk to our students in a more appropriate way, you know, and one of those was full measure texting tool, which really just allows us to via text, which is the most preferred communication tool for our students to converse. And then we launched this Cranium Cafe. That's a little snapshot of, I think it's Patricia Posada, one of our counselors. But if you go to our site, it really just says, yep, I'm in, you know, click, ask a question, you know, schedule something. It's much more personal than we did. So from student affairs side, they're leaning into the same kind of distance education, if you will, online support. DocuSign down below has speeded things along. So operationally, one of the strengths, one of the unintended benefits of COVID was that we have found out how to do things faster, better, with less paper and fewer hurdles. And while still, I think, respecting the boundaries that we need to respect, you know, the processes and shared governance and participatory. DocuSign is one of those. Financial aid disbursements going well, and there's reports that you're going to hear on that. That's hats off to CARES Act and those dollars coming in. Food basket is going along. We have a commencement survey. I thought, this is Mr. Baby Boomer, I thought everybody was going to say, absolutely, virtual would be so wonderful. I would love to participate. And we asked them and they basically said, nah, no thanks. And then we didn't believe them because we're baby boomers and we know better. So we asked them again and they said, nope, I really meant it the first time. So we're working on appropriate end of year mini celebrations for different groups and how we're going to address commencement in the future. Most colleges, I think, are on their own. Some are postponing. Many are postponing. Many are planning for August. And if they can't do it, they'll boot it a little farther. So we're still in process. Okay, got to hurry along here. I'm sorry. Keep going. The foundation is kicked into gear. They've got good, strong leadership, new board members. They've got new energy, and they jumped right up with our district auxiliary services to get more money in the hands of students who ordinarily could not qualify for that money, be those DACA students or other students who have the need but are ineligible. I think I'm saying that right, Bob, right? Yeah, thanks. Academic affairs, Faye sent this over today. You got to work collaboratively with your peers during this time where nothing really works. So it's been a very strong view for me to see. I'm very happy with how people are working jointly together. Faculty are working, crazily trying to get better, right? Because that's what we do when we teach. It's never quite good enough, right? Even if you have 30 people telling you it was great, one person disagrees, you want to satisfy that person. So they're continuing to improve. Career education and workforce is coming along. We suspended, and you'll have to help me out, Faye, but we've suspended our current police academy. Some police academies are still running. Ours, however, because there were so many agency folks in there, their agencies were calling them back. And so we had to kind of work on that, and we should be booting that back up June 1, I believe. Health and safety is Bob's area. Same issue. We really had trouble with labs and getting all these folks in health out to their training, right? They were cleared to do that, but it's been very difficult to find enough clinical sites for people. And so this whole thing is a little bit round robin. So we have been allowed to do this virtual clinic experiences, so they're coming along. You can read this. Physical, PE and athletics are decimated by this, really. There's very little going on. Again, Bob's area, a lot of ongoing conversations, meeting. We'll rebound and be ready. And language arts and library, social sciences took the lead really in the distance education piece. A lot of attendees, some people attending more than once, different kinds of training over those 3 or 4 days. Loaner laptops are going out to our students. There are philanthropic efforts to buy more laptops for students who can't afford them. And then finally, human resources. As you know, we approved this policy, this emergency policy. We declared this res, and we approved a telecommuting option, which was, thank you, board. It was a good call on your part. And we pulled that meeting together pretty fast. As of this date, 185, Charles shared, have taken advantage of the telecommuting option. And weren't we smart in doing that? And knowing now that, we only have essential people. We are essential service. We could have more people here if we chose to do that, but we're trying to really respect this flattening of the curve. So only a few of us are here. You can probably see us in our offices here. And finally, they're moving full speed to support negotiations, benefits, recruitment efforts. We're in several recruitments, and that hasn't stopped. We're in hiring procedures, which are all Zoom all day. And so, and I think we may be hiring some people without seeing them physically until they show up to sign paperwork, which is a little out of the box for us, but everybody's doing a great job. So that's the COVID update. You're certainly open board to ask questions, and we have all these experts here who can answer for you. Bob is going to do a separate update on this. That's why the administrative services area wasn't necessarily included in this.
Any questions for Dr. Kraft? Okay, then, as he mentioned, Mr. Parker will, because we're all concerned about finances and how that's going to play out in our budget, he's going to make a very special presentation on.
Yeah, it's very special.
Yes.
Well, thank you. And I do want to say before I get into the budget update, administrative services is certainly more than the budget. And I must, at this point, recognize the facility staff that continue to work on campus, cleaning, disinfecting, maintaining our grounds, and who are already making plans to get the campus ready for the time when we'll be able to have people back on campus again. To the IT staff, institutional technology is keeping our systems operating, supporting online education and telecommuting, and they continue to work on system upgrades. You approved at the December board meeting moving forward with some infrastructure upgrades. And I'm happy to report that that's still moving forward, even at this time. And then finally, the business office. We're still paying the bills. We're still processing payroll, and things are moving forward in that area as well. So now, Catherine, if you can move to the next slide. In this, so the purpose of this budget update is to talk about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our current year budget. which will be closing out in the next few months, and on the probably, perhaps more importantly, on the budget development process for 2021. So first, Catherine, next slide, focusing on the current fiscal year. So what impacts do we have on our 2019-2020 budget? And first of all, we will see a loss of revenue as a result of what's happening right now. We have students who are unfortunately in a position where they need to drop their classes. They've either online education isn't working for them, or probably more importantly, they've lost their job. They can no longer afford to attend. They need to focus on other things in their personal lives. And so state of California, the Chancellor's office has said that we will allow students to withdraw with no penalty, and we will return their enrollment fees to them. And so we will see a loss of enrollment fees as a result of the what's currently happening. Community services classes, we've had to cancel all of our community services classes because they do, by and large, require, it's something that requires face-to-face. And so we'll see a drop in those revenues. Instructional materials fees, as students are withdrawing from classes, or probably more importantly, as classes are moving to online, those instructional materials are not being utilized. And so we are refunding certain instructional materials fees. We'll certainly see a loss in parking revenue, both in refunds to students who are dropping their classes, as well as loss in revenue from issuing citations. We're going to see a decrease in revenues that we receive from the lottery. You've probably seen, we are being told that lottery ticket sales have decreased, and so there will definitely be a corresponding decrease in lottery revenue. We are no longer renting any of our facilities, and so we will see a loss in that revenue. So our estimate of our total loss of revenue, and this is for the current fiscal year, is approximately $1.9 million. Catherine, if we can move to the next slide. We're also seeing some increased expenses. We had payments to adjunct faculty to attend Canvas training, to transition classes to being online, and also payments to adjunct faculty for the transition time that's required to move their class from being face-to-face to being online. Those payments will be made with the May payroll. We also had to expand our virtual private network, or VPN, capabilities to support faculty and staff telecommuting. We also paid for a mail communication to students, a mailing that I believe is going out at the end of this week. Those total increased expenses to date are about $100,000. Catherine, if you could move to the next slide. So there is another side to this, and part of that is a reduction in expenses. Obviously, if your classes are not meeting in person, then there's a reduction in the instructional supplies that are required and the instructional materials that are required. As many of our classified and administrators have moved to working from home, we're seeing a decrease in office supply orders. We're seeing a decrease in equipment orders. And so overall, we expect a reduction in expenses through the end of the year of approximately $700,000. And then, Catherine, next slide. Finally, there are some new sources of revenue. For example, the CARES Act. Napa Valley College will be receiving approximately $2.1 million in CARES Act funding. Now, 50% of that, or $1,062,000 of that, is specifically to be used for direct financial aid to our students. And so those funds, we expect to receive those funds. We've submitted our application. We expect to receive those funds within the next few days, and those funds will, as quickly as possible, be distributed to students in direct financial aid.
How much is that, Bob? I'm so sorry. How much was that available for students?
So it's $1,062,000.
Thank you.
And so there is a corresponding $1,062,000 that is available for the college to pay the expenses associated with the COVID-19 pandemic and to offset some of the losses that we'll see as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We also expect that the Chancellor's Office, and the Chancellor's Office is working on this at this point, that the Chancellor's Office will backfill our lost enrollment fees. We have also submitted an application to FEMA for possible reimbursement of some of the expenses associated with the COVID-19 pandemic from FEMA. And our total estimate of new revenue is about $1.3 million. So Catherine, if we move to the next slide, you can see
really quick, Bob, quick question about the anticipated revenue is like 1.3. Does that include what's been requested of FEMA, or is that separate?
No, it does include what will be requested of FEMA. Yeah.
And what's the dollar amount that's been requested of FEMA?
That's about $100,000 of that 1.3. If you look at that 1.3, approximately 1.1 million, $1,062,000 to be exact, is the CARES Act funding. The restoration of lost enrollment fees is a little over 100,000, and then the potential FEMA reimbursement is approximately 100,000 as well.
Okay, thank you.
So if we look at the summary, lost revenue and increased expenses are approximately 2 million, but reduced expenses and new revenue are also approximately 2 million. So the overall impact on the 2019-2020 budget should be a balance, or there should be no impact on the 2019-2020 budget. Where the impact is unclear, however, is moving forward into planning for the 2020-2021 budget. So if you've been following what's happening in Sacramento, what the state is looking to adopt, at least initially, it's a little unusual this year. Typically, the state adopts their budget in June, and that's the budget. They're really talking this year about adopting a budget in June and revisiting that in August. And so the initial budget will be what they're referring to as a workload or a baseline budget, which basically means continuing current activity, not funding any new initiatives, and any available funds, any funds that might be available to fund new initiatives. They're really looking at COVID-19, wildfire mitigation, and homelessness initiatives. They're already saying an estimated $7 billion on spending on COVID-19 relief efforts. So, that's obviously a sizable piece of the state budget. So again, as I say, budget in June, revisit in August, and the reason that they're saying August is that they've extended the income tax filing deadline to July 15th. And so the feeling is won't really have a clear picture on what the state revenue looks like until after that income tax filing deadline. So revisit it in August because there will be better or more information about total state revenues at that point. Now, the primary impact for us at Napa Valley College is on funding for our categorical programs. So remember, we get very little funding in general fund unrestricted from the state, but our categorical programs are our Student Equity and Achievement Program, our DSPS program, our EOPS program. All of those programs could be impacted by a shortfall at the state level. Catherine, if we could move to the next slide. Locally, you've probably been reading again about significant budget or revenue shortfalls for the city of Napa, for the county of Napa. What they're talking about in all of those discussions is the immediate decrease in sales tax revenue and transient occupancy tax, or TOT, revenues. We don't receive funding from sales tax or TOT. So when we talk about our local tax revenue, it's from property taxes. Now, the impacts of what's happening right now on overall property tax revenue are still unclear. We're assuming that there will be some immediate impact on property tax collection. Now, that doesn't mean that the property tax revenue won't come in, but we're anticipating that collection of property tax property taxes may be a little slower than usual. That's not really an issue for us because we don't immediately, when our property taxes come in November and in April, we don't immediately spend all of that money. We're spending that money over the 6-month period that follows the receipt of those funds. So if the funds come in over a 2 or 3 month period instead of all coming in 1 month, that's not a problem for us, as long as the money comes in ultimately. And we have no reason to believe that there will be a significant decrease in property tax collection. What we do need to look at is, we have been fortunate to have increases on an annual basis in total assessed value that immediately or that results in increases in property tax revenue that we receive. It's pretty likely that what's happening right now is going to have an impact on total assessed value. We're not anticipating that total assessed value will significantly decline, but we're definitely not going to see, or at least we're assuming for budgeting purposes, that we will not see the growth year over year that we've seen for the past few years. So Catherine, can we move to the next slide? So we have to adopt a tentative budget by June 30th of 2020. What we're looking at for that budget is to follow the lead of the state and the advice that we're receiving from the Community College League of California, and that is to look at a local workload budget, no new initiatives funded, no increases in revenue predicted, and quite frankly, a potential decrease in state revenue and local earned revenue. So, we said we're going to see a decrease in what we were anticipating for facility rental revenue in the current fiscal year. Well, that's not going to change in July, August, September, so we need to anticipate that we won't have that same level of revenue coming in for those months as well. As we're looking at our general fund restricted budget or a categorical budget, we need to assume that there may be some reductions in what comes from the state for those categorical programs. So that's what we're looking at building into our tentative budget. We are, however, continuing. We started the unit plan process and the area plan process back in November, actually, and we are at the point where those unit plans and area plans are now being evaluated and being prioritized. We're going to continue that process. When we come to you with a tentative budget in June for adoption, we will outline what those potential new initiatives were and how they were prioritized. We won't be including them in the tentative budget, but we will have them prioritized. Catherine, if we can move to the next slide. So taking the lead again from the state, for our final budget, which must be adopted by September 15, we're going to incorporate any new information regarding state and local revenues. So we will have a better idea of what the state budget looks like. We should know what funding will be coming in for our categorical programs. We will have a better idea of the overall impact on growth in total assessed value, at least better projections of what that would be. And so we will have a better idea for the final budget what our revenues will look like for the 2021 budget. And we'll determine at that time if any of these new initiatives that were prioritized as part of the tentative budget can be funded. And so that's the important thing of going through the prioritization process, is so that we are disclosing and disclosing that to the general campus community, including input from the general campus community, which we typically do at this time of year during the month of May, including input from the general campus community on those initiatives, so that if any of them can be funded in the final budget, we will have vetted them with the general campus community. So that's where we are with our current year budget and our planning for our 2020-2021 budget.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Parker? Thank you for that great presentation.
Thank you, Bob. And I would say that just real quickly, I knew that Bob was going to give a shout out to the other units in administrative services, but so thank you for that. Your teams are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. So now we're on to 10. 10.1, approval of consent calendar.
Move approval.
Second?
Second, Jennifer.
Thank you so very much. So moved by Trustee Baldini, second by Trustee Baker. Discussion, comments, there being none. Trustee Baker, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Dodd, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Goff?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Trustee Iverson?
Aye.
Trustee Rios?
Aye.
Trustee Rios?
Aye.
Aye. Student Trustee Leon?
Aye.
Trustee Baldini?
Aye.
And it is an aye for Segura as well, so thank you very much. Academic Affairs Information Discussion Item 11.1, Curriculum Changes for Spring 2020. Recommended action, approve new revised curriculum as presented. Are there any questions, or can I entertain a motion?
Move approval.
Okay, well, this time moved by Trustee Baker. Do I hear a second?
Second by Baldini.
Second by Trustee Baldini. Trustee Baker.
Aye.
Trustee Dodd.
Aye.
Trustee Goff.
Aye.
Trustee Iverson.
Aye.
Trustee Rios.
Aye.
Student Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Baldini.
Aye.
And that's an aye for me as well. So All in favor? 12, administrative services information, discussion, action items. 12.1, 2018-2019 Napa Valley Community College District and Audit Report. Before we take a vote, Trustee Baker, would you like to just do a brief report on our meeting?
Sure. We had a meeting, I think it was last week. It feels like about 3 years ago, where we met with the auditor via Zoom and reviewed the audit, and he was very complimentary of all of the work that Bob's people have done. And even though it was coming in late because of a number of staffing issues and turnover and whatnot that caused a delay, it was the result was excellent. No, they didn't have any problems or flags or anything. So they gave us a very good report, and our committee made a motion to recommend the acceptance of the audit report to the full board.
And this is Bob. We do have, I think he's still with us. We do have Ben Levitt from CWDL with us on the phone to answer any questions that you might have. Ben, are you there?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Bob, I am.
Thank you for sticking with us.
Of course. No, it's been a good meeting.
Any questions for our auditor?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Moved by Trustee Rios, a second by Trustee Iverson. Trustee Baker.
Aye.
Trustee Dodd.
Aye.
Trustee Goff.
Aye.
Trustee Iverson.
Aye.
Trustee Rios.
Aye.
Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Baldini.
Aye.
And that's an aye for me as well. So we are approved. The audit. Item 13, human resources information, discussion action items. 14, student affairs information, discussion action items. 15, general information, discussion action items. 15.1, guided pathways. Faye Smiley, Eileen Tejada, Robin Warnwall, Jessica Erickson. Members of the Guided Pathways leadership team will present information on guided pathways. So ladies.
So Kathleen, do you want me to go ahead and change my, share my screen? Oops. Hold on. What happened? Okay, share screen.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Once it kicks in. Oh, share. Okay. So from beginning. Okay. Can everybody see us or see the presentation?
Yes.
Looks good.
So this is Robin, and I will start. So good evening, board members. Good to see your faces. So a group of us are here to share some information about guided pathways with you. So I'll give you an outline of how we will proceed, and then I'll introduce our team members. So I'm Robin Warnell, the Senior Dean of Research Planning and Institutional Effectiveness. And I'm going to start the presentation by providing an overview of guided pathways and how it relates to our institutional plans and structures. So then Jessica Erickson, our Dean of Enrollment and Outreach Services, will summarize activities in the area of student support. Eileen Tejada, our Academic Senate President and English and Anthropology faculty member, will describe activities associated with academic support and will describe resources needed to implement guided pathways at scale. And then Faye Smiley, the Interim Vice President of Academic Affairs, will describe what has been done this semester in the online environment and provide some additional resources for you to explore following this meeting. So our goal this evening is to give you a sense of the wide variety of activities that are underway and that are associated with guided pathways. There are 3 attachments associated with this agenda item, and those include MVC Scale of Adoption Self-Assessment, which is called our SOA, which was submitted to the Chancellor's Office earlier this semester. A video that Eileen coordinated and shared with the campus community at our Spring Flex Day, and a document listing the 23 essential practices associated with Guided Pathways implementation, and those are structured around the 4 pillars of Guided Pathways. So most of the information that we'll be presenting tonight is drawn directly from our SOA. MVC has been engaging in Guided Pathways types of practices in some way, shape, or form throughout our existence. What makes Guided Pathways exciting and different is that it helps ensure that efforts are coordinated across the institution to improve the student experience and make it the best it can be, and also ensure that we are being student-centered and intentional about our efforts. Guided Pathways provides an opportunity for us to expand practices that we know to be effective. For example, components of intensive high-touch programs such as EOPS, SSS, Puente, and Emoja, and make those supports available to all students. So the graphic on this slide identifies the 4 pillars of Guided Pathways, and those are to create the pathways, help students choose and enter a pathway, then help them stay on their path, and ensure that students are acquiring the knowledge and skills needed along the way. Hopefully these pillars sound somewhat familiar, as 3 of the 5 goals in our own institutional strategic plan echo these types of activities. So goals 1 through 3 cover getting students in, so that's onboarding, then engaging them while they're here, so that's getting them on the path, helping them stay on track, and ensuring learning along the way, and then getting them to an educational goal, so that's getting them through to completion. Also related to planning, the Chancellor's Office has conveyed that there should be coherence in our planning efforts linking the vision for success, Guided Pathways, and student equity. And the instructions throughout the SOA encourage colleges to incorporate equity considerations into their Guided Pathways plans. We have several structures in place to involve faculty, classified staff, and administrators in Guided Pathways work. Our leadership team helps coordinate implementation across cross-functional teams that delve down into the detailed planning and implementation process. Last year, the leadership team developed a vision statement for Guided Pathways, and that appears at the bottom of this slide. This year, we launched 4 cross-functional teams to do work in priority areas identified for the year, and an example of that is that we have a cross-functional team designated for AB 705 implementation. We've sent 2 teams to participate in the Leading from the Middle Academies, which have been offered by the RP group. Our 2018 Teams project focused on making the case for Guided Pathways at Napa Valley College. And Jessica, who is a member of this year's team, will describe the 2020 Teams project. And as conveyed in our 2020 SOA, we determined that we are at scale on 3 Guided Pathways practices and have scaling in progress in 4 other practices. This is the 2nd year that MVC has received Guided Pathways funding, and we have approximately 1/3 of the practices in place at this point. So now I'm going to advance the slide and turn it over to Jessica.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. Good evening. I am Jessica Erickson, the Dean of Enrollment and Outreach Services, and I've been a member of the Guided Pathways leadership team since 2017, when the group first collected to create our first SOA, which is our summary of what we're doing to do the work of Guided Pathways. As Robin mentioned, we have an LFM team, which is a Leading from the Middle group of campus leaders from across the campus, and we're exploring this group this year is exploring the student experience, and very specifically we've identified the fact that our student experience, the predominance of students we have are actually the part-time student. And so we're really digging in and drilling in deeply into what is that part-time student experience, and how can we really effectively provide all of the services and resources that our part-time students need, and while we are helping to support a large percentage of our students, how are we working toward helping to give the support so that our part-time students can become full-time students? What is it that we can do to help transition those students? So that's a little bit of the just sort of the launching point of where we're headed. But we've got a lot of exciting things that we're going to be looking at and working on, and we're really excited about that. In terms of the student support highlights, we have done so many things over the past couple of years, and it aligns very beautifully actually with things that are needed in other areas such as accreditation and other initiatives that we know are helping through equity and through other supports so that we're giving our students what they need. We implemented self-service student planning, which again, tying to our the pillars of guided pathways, we're helping students get on and stay on their path. And they're allowed then through the student planning ed plan to stay on path to their goal and work and progress toward completion in a way that they actually can interact with their ed plan in a real live online format. We also have some dedicated college staff that are working, have been working on site on the high schools, which now we have been working hard to transition all of those in-person sessions. We are now in the process of all of the Zoom meetings so that students are now able to meet with our outreach staff in a Zoom setting. We're also developing Canvas shells, which is our learning platform, and so we're allowing some of the content of our actual interactions with our students in simulating what was happening on campus at the high schools, and we're simulating that within a virtual environment. So that is what we're working on right now. The team's working really hard to do that through our outreach task force, and that's very, very exciting. We also are very focused on, and this is also both a Napa Valley College initiative as well as something that's been very supported through Guided Pathways and the work that we do on the leadership team, and specifically in student affairs, is that we're looking at collecting the student voice, and we're doing this in a number of different ways. For the LFM team is working on collecting student voice. We have student surveys, a lot of even related to COVID-19, that's helping us to gather more student voice. We have direct student focus groups, some with an equity focus, some with a technology focus, and the technology focus is connected to one of our 4 cross-functional teams, one being the one that I'm specifically referring to as the enhancement of student-focused technology. That is a cross-functional team where the students that are in that group are actually providing us direct feedback on some of the different technologies that we're using. And so we're really gathering that feedback, and as we launch new technologies, we're also looking at having that as a framework for collecting student voice regularly, and having that help influence development and influence what we provide in terms of support and resources. And then finally, next steps, you may be hearing that we are working toward implementing an early alert system that will be all, again, digital, and provide a network of support for students so that they can be identified early as needing supports, and then identifying how those supports can be offered. Again, as Dr. Kraft mentioned at the beginning of the meeting today, expanding our communications, and a lot of that is being done through Full Measure, which is the text messaging tool, as well as the opportunity to leverage that in a mobile format that we're still working on developing. So very exciting stuff happening. I'm so thrilled that Guided Pathways aligns so beautifully with what we need as a college, and what supports we're working toward.
Thank you.
So
I have a question, if I could ask one.
Of course.
Do.
Jessica, and thanks to you and Robin for putting together that really nice high-level overview. In terms of Bob's presentation about budget and kind of the ominous message and looking towards 2021, as you see, looking over those next steps and planning there, have you guys taken any time to step back and thinking about potentially readjusting those next steps and considering that in light of potential budget reductions?
So we actually have our second meeting in the virtual world is scheduled for tomorrow. So we haven't had a chance to really unpack that, but we do have actually some more slides that Eileen and Faye are going to present, and then Faye's actually going to talk a little bit to speak to your question a little bit. Maybe not
the all-star team. That's great.
Okay. Eileen now, right?
Oh, Eileen, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. The framework of guided pathway reveals the importance of communication and collaboration within and across disciplines and constituent groups. Faculty have achieved the highlighted accomplishments by working in a transdisciplinary manner and with other constituent groups. As we create plans and strategies to achieve next steps, we work with classified professionals and administrators to ensure we are rescuing as many diverse experiences and perspectives to best serve our students. Our approach to collecting data and creating institutional infrastructure relies on a transdisciplinary and cross-constituent group approach. The Napa Valley College Academic Senate leadership has committed to a proactive, forward-thinking approach. Advance the slide, please. Catherine, advance the, or is it
Robin?
Yeah,
I got it.
Thank you. So an example of this proactive approach is that to address bullets 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the resource needs slide, we secured $30,000 from an IEPI grant specifically to address faculty training specific to instructional design for course quality in both distance ed and face-to-face courses. Of course, this $30,000 is basically seed money. Although the Napa Valley College Academic Senate has had to fast-track this training due to the emergent urgent distance education needs during COVID-19, the Academic Senate is able to proactively address this need. We are approving a process that will adhere to the guided pathway framework using the praxis of communication and collaboration, and will align and address the accreditation distance ed standards and rubric. In less than one semester, with the additional prep of converting face-to-face classes to online, the Academic Senate leadership is poised and ready to launch an institute for instructional design for course quality. This is an example of how the frameworks for guided pathway address the needs of students and models for students and the Napa Valley College community, the foundations of the pillars of guided pathway, which are communication and collaboration in a world lived in common with others. We continue to explore ways to fund and institutionalize professional development needs as outlined in this resource slide. Okay, and now please advance the slide. And Faye?
Thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. It is really, really good to see you all, and I do hope that you and your families are doing as well as you can during this just awful time. I'm going to talk a little bit about guided pathways in the online environment. And one would think, as we're going through this terrible crisis, that initiatives such as guided pathways stops. But guided pathways did not stop during this time. It actually was the foundation for all of the work that we have done over the past 6 weeks to make sure that our students were still successful. And because that is our responsibility, and that is a key component of guided pathways. So what have we been doing? There's been so much, and many of my colleagues who are doing this presentation, and I thank you for all that you've done and
letting me take the lead in bringing this home this evening. But there's been so much done that we couldn't even talk about it in the 2 minutes that I have left for this presentation. But a couple of things that I want to highlight is that we have used a collaborative method. We are working together, and Dr. Kraft alluded to this in his report, to make sure that we are looking at the training that needs to be done, looking at our registration timelines, looking at how we're communicating with our students and staff, what things are happening in the Welcome Center. These are all pieces of guided pathways that are allowing students to, look at Pillar 3, stay on the path. That was our goal. We had to make sure that we put things in place to help those students to stay on the path. And then ultimately, Pillar 4, ensuring that the learning and success was still happening for our students. That was a difficult task. And as I said in my report that Dr. Kraft showed you, 3 days of training, and our faculty were right there providing instruction for our students in an online environment. Again, how are they able to do this? Because of the supports that we're giving them so that they can then in turn support our students. I think through everything that has happened, we've also realized what we have been doing and have been doing really well through guided pathways. But I think it does help us to also create some goals and some strategies for what we need to continue to do or what we need to work on. And again, a few people have alluded to it tonight, but you know, moving things online, not just in instruction, but in our writing center, in our math center, the support we've gotten from our career ed programs with small businesses, the support for our students with our laptop loan program, which is still happening. I actually had to get 10 more laptops to bring over to the Welcome Center today because more students are asking. And why are they asking? Because we're communicating that we have this available to them. So again, this collaborative effort, I can't thank my colleagues enough, the colleagues that are right here on the screen, for working together with me to make sure that we are all ensuring student success. You know, my academic affairs council, my gosh, we were meeting 3 times a week a few weeks ago, working with the Senate leadership. I thank Eileen and Jim, the program coordinators, the faculty chairs, and my own academic affairs office that are all just working so well together to support students. And again, this is all under the framework of guided pathways. So everyone out there, thank you so much. This is just a bunch of fabulous resources. We also posted a couple of things ahead of time in board docs, so be sure to look at those. One of those resources is a wonderful video that Eileen Tejada and the Senate put together for Flex Day. I want to make sure you look at that, but then other materials as well that will help you to get a even deeper understanding of guided pathways. And we hope that we have an opportunity to come back again to talk to you in a little deeper way about all the work that we're doing. This is just a little piece of candy to give you. And hopefully you like what we're saying and you'll want to hear more in the future. But I really want to commend the great work that folks are doing in this area. Thank you.
Definitely. I think we love the work that you're doing. And thank you for that. Do we have any questions, comments on the presentation? Thank you again. So now we go to number 16, board policy review and adoption. Do we, should we go ahead and vote on this? Trustees, on 16.1, second reading. Board Policy BP 3570, 3820, 5030, 5070, 5205, and 6700.
Move approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Trustee Baker.
Aye.
Trustee Dodd.
Aye.
Trustee Goff.
Aye.
Trustee Iverson.
Aye.
Trustee Rios.
Aye.
Student Trustee Leon.
Aye.
Trustee Baldini.
So a little out of order, but I want to vote no on the smoking. I don't know if that was, we've done exceptions.
So,
I've done everything else.
okay. Does that mean we need to revisit that at the next meeting, or?
No, you still have it.
So recorded. I mean, you took them as a group, but it was clear Michael's votes, so we can record them that way.
Okay, sounds good. And that's an aye for me. So it's unanimous.
Except with the exception of.
With the exception of Trustee Baldini voting no on the smoking, which would be VP 3570.
Correct. So we'll record that as a 6-1, okay, instead, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. 16.2, repeal of board policy D1130. Oh, never mind, that was removed from the agenda. Never mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Erase that.
Okay,
now.
Everybody
Yes.
up, right?
Board reports. 17.1, standing committee and other appointments. I think that the only ones we have would be the real property and oh my goodness.
Yeah, we had DOS met.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, never mind. Let me go down the line. What have you got for us, Jennifer?
It was, well, I have nothing to compare it to, but I felt like it was a short meeting. We met via Zoom on the 31st, and one of the things they did was make me official. Really didn't do a whole lot. We were focusing on kind of getting an update of concerns over revenue, since so much of DOS's revenue is based off of things like the cafe, which is now closed, and rental of facilities for like theater and whatnot. So a lot of those things are just on hold right now. So there's been a real reduction in the amount of funds coming in. As a result, they had to separate with the student workers that they had so that they could apply for unemployment. One major action that we took was to adopt a memorandum of understanding between DOS and the college and the foundation, so that we could basically get access, so DOS could have access to funds that are available to students that are not restricted to scholarship. So it's mostly going to just make it easier for them to disseminate funds to students. So that was pretty much it.
Oh, thank you. That was good. Viticulture and Winery Foundation, Trustee Baldini.
No meeting. It's scheduled for May 7th, I believe.
Thank you. May 6th. Okay. A Legislative Affairs Committee.
Yeah, we do have a little update. I want to thank Holly for all of her work with the Legislative Committee. She is really the one who's putting all this together and tracking everything for us. There are a couple things that we want to report out. One is we both attended the Advocacy Day. It was a 90-minute meeting, over a 90-minute meeting. And a lot of that had to do with really reiterating the importance of community colleges at this time, like I mentioned earlier in the meeting, about how in economic downturn, a lot of people turn to the community colleges. That was certainly a really big theme. That means also the impact that community colleges have on essential workers. How many essential workers out there actually are part of the community college community? So that was really good to hear. And I know the CCLC is really pushing that at the state level and reminding our representatives how important community colleges are at this time. For the legislative committee, for our work, there's really not a lot to do because it actually delayed all of the representatives coming back until May. So they aren't doing really anything. And even when they do come back, they are going to be asked to prioritize and really only focusing on really needed legislation. So there isn't going to be any fluff. There isn't going to be a lot of arguments as far as stuff that really isn't prioritized this time around. And I know that Holly is going to let us know when we need to meet again to take care of some of that stuff. So I'm sure she will keep us in the loop.
Thank you. And audit and finance, Ms. Jennifer, Ms. Trustee Baker?
Yes. Well, both of the items that we took action on in our meeting were actually brought forward to this board. So we had the extension, the new contract, which extends our current contract by a year with the auditors, and then, of course, the review of the audit that we just accepted. And the only other thing we have really is we will be meeting in June just to kind of review preliminary steps and expectations for the 1920 audit.
Thank you. Real property. Trustee Rios?
We met on April 2nd and did got updates on a few things. One, the student housing, which you heard the full report on earlier. A couple of other things, the Upper Valley campus, nothing really going on. There's planning. It started discussions about what other uses might be made up there and how to increase the courses up there, but that's kind of stopped at the moment given the COVID-19. Still same kind of situation for Mount Veeder, Bumpy Camp. Cleaning up from the fires and all of that was continuing, but has slowed again given our current condition. And planning for that will continue, trying to find other uses, educational uses for the property up there. And that was basically it. The housing was the major item, and we've heard all about that. We don't currently have any future meetings scheduled. So that's it.
Thank you. McPherson Distinguished Teaching.
So I have received 15 applications, or 15 teachers and part-time faculty have been submitted. I need to give a shout out to Christine Tapia. I'm not sure who this person is, but I'm going to bring her something when I meet her, because this woman has gone above and beyond trying to get a very small group of people together to make a decision. And the poor girl, I'm sure she's bald from pulling her hair out. We have rescheduled again, was just rescheduled again. In fact, I just got a calendar request for 3 different times next week. And I said yes to all of them just because I feel so sorry for her trying to get us together. I'm really hoping that we will have a decision and you'll know who is going to receive that award by the end of next week. Fingers are crossed, and I'm praying for Christine Tapia's mental well-being at this point. So we will get it, I promise.
It's actually Christine Tapia and Vicki Tevlin, and Vicki is really trying to do the scheduling part, and it is a nightmare, but thank you for acknowledging. I appreciate it. Christine's been working hard on the application part as well.
Okay. Please thank both of them for me. And I know I have to bring maybe 2 things with me because I feel badly for them, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that report. Napa Valley College Foundation. Steve Iverson?
Yeah, we did meet. Just the foundation is still adapting to the new realities of working in this new environment. A lot of scholarships, a lot of good work. The biggest thing to report out with the foundation right now is that Ann Branch is no longer with the institution. and our go-to person is Jessica Tomlinson. And a lot of good work still. I'm looking forward to the next year after COVID-19 and what we can do with the foundation. So some changes. I don't know if Dr. Kraft, do you want to elaborate anymore? Or?
No, they're fine. I would say that we could typify their excitement. They've got a new crew on, new board members. They're very excited about getting money as much as they can directly into the hands of our students. So they're very committed people, and I'd say that the foundation is strong. It's stronger than it's ever been, probably.
Thank you. Do we have any future agenda item requests? Okay, I guess we don't. 17.3, trustee and board reports. Anybody have reports? Trustee Baker?
Nothing official, just in it like everybody else and doing the best we can, working full time, trying to teach 2 kids. And I showered today just for you guys. I haven't even left the house.
Thank you for that.
I even curled my hair. Happy National Library Week to everyone. Libraries, just like community colleges, are when the economy goes down, our usage goes up. And so I know libraries all over are working really hard to make certain that people have access to what they need, and doing it in a digital world. And it's at least we have the internet. God help us if that goes away. So that's all.
Thank you. Trustee Dodd?
I think probably speaking on behalf of the rest of the board, I mean, just a tremendous, well done. Kudos to our administration, to our faculty, to our staff who are just doing incredible work. I mean, everybody's working way more than they did before, and doing it without asking for anything. We're just focusing on students. It's incredible to see. As trustees, we don't get to be on campus as much as everybody else. Quite the opposite. But it's seeing the emails coming through from academic services, from the library, to faculty, to people. You can just see how hard everybody's working just on the emails, and providing opportunities for students, to great communications from the president's office. It's really heartwarming, and I'm so proud to be associated with this college, and thank you. I just can't say that enough for everything and all the hard work that you're putting in, and I'm just hoping our students can survive this.
With all the wonderful work that everybody's doing, yes, thank you also for that great support. Trustee Goff.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Dodd. A big thanks goes out to everyone working on this. I, for one, am completely sick of Zoom meetings. I'm just so over being on the computer. This is really taxing. People say, oh, it must be so easy. It's really not. It's really awful. And the only thing that saves me is I get to go out every morning about 6 o'clock and walk the wetlands, and it's beautiful here. So if you want a good place to walk and just get out, come down here and you'll reconnect a little bit, get some fresh air. I have been trying to attend the webinars that CCLC is putting on, kind of jumping in when I can, when I'm not in my own classroom or meetings for me. And it's been very interesting. Still learning about the community college system, but man, are we surrounded by just really smart people. I've been very impressed with the leadership of the CCLC. Had a chance to hear the Chancellor Oakley yesterday. Pretty impressive. So I'm really feel fortunate about being a part of community colleges at this point. I was a student. I actually was employed by Napa Valley College for a while, but I really didn't have the the scope of what a positive impact community colleges have on people from a wide variety of areas and how much we really do for communities. So I'm very, very proud to be part of this and to hopefully in years to come be an advocate for the institution. So I want to thank everybody for the opportunity. And if nothing else came out of this COVID-19, I broadened my education in this area, which I'm very thankful for.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Trustee Iverson.
Just adjusting like everybody else. And I, again, just well said by Trustee Dodd and Goff. And thank you to everyone. And a shout out to Holly. She's doing a great work and
awesome
craft, all of you guys over there. So thank you. And it's definitely a challenge being at home with limited stuff to get you away from your almost 3-year-old and newborn. I think I've managed to finish a lot of projects, but it's good to see all you guys, and I'm glad everyone's healthy and staying safe, and thanks again.
Thank you. Trustee Rios?
No report.
Student Trustee Leon?
No report this time around, but I did want to recognize the staff and everyone at the Mesa and STEM Center. Luis Alcazar and Cynthia Hernandez, they really did a great job in my perspective, being part of Mesa and receiving all the information and updates, rolling out the transition to Canvas, the learning management system, accessible by all the students enrolled within Mesa. It was very quick. It was very effective in my viewpoint, that they did a really well job. And so I just wanted to make sure that they were recognized and appreciated, because it definitely helped me out. I know it helped a whole bunch of my classmates out transitioning online. So thank you to the Mesa team.
Thank you. Trustee Baldini?
Yep.
Two things. A former trustee of ours, Joanne Busenbark, always asked me, why? Well, I'll tell you why we vote a certain way. And I voted for the against smoking because I just don't believe in smoking, period. The other one was kind of a Churchillian quote, and again, following the rest of the board is the pride I have in being associated with this college, and never has so many done with so little for our students, and I appreciate that all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no report, even though we did well anyway. But like everybody else, it was really good to see you. I do miss the personal touch, but hopefully this is not the new norm. I do miss you people. But please stay safe, stay healthy, and my best to all of your families. Do we want to continue with closed session? Does anybody have anything to add to that?
No, thank you.
And so our next meeting is May 14th, 2020. So we will see you then.
And
before.
I would say just quickly that we're all kind of aware. The 14th will be virtual again, and it will look similar to this, and hopefully June will be bright and shiny faces, maybe, who knows. So we'll send you information.
Thank you. And on that note, we are adjourned at 8:17.
Good night, everyone.